The ocean. It makes up about 70% of Earth's surface. And despite that, even to this day, we know very little about what lies beneath the waves. It is the subject of mystery and wonder of all of mankind. But what if I were to tell you that right now, in the Caribbean, there's an invasion happening?
Hi, I'm LaDaryn. I wear a lot of hats. I'm an educator, I'm a writer, I'm a lifelong learner, but the one hat I can never take off is my love for animals and wildlife. Our relationship with animals shape our planet, our history, and even our future. And they don't just hold a special place in my heart, but I know in a lot of yours as well. And I can't stop talking about them. So join me as we explore this wild world we call home, the complex, beautiful, and sometimes fragile systems that connect us all through these words on wildlife.
This very first episode of Words on Wildlife, I'm joined with marine biologist and educator Savanna Finley. I met her once while visiting the East Coast, and I am so excited to have her on this first episode because she has given me quite a bit of insight for this particular invasive species. You may recognize this as the red lionfish. It is a tropical and venomous species found in the Indo-Chinese Pacific, but it also is invasive on the east coast of the United States and parts of the Caribbean as well. Let's talk about lionfish because when you shared this with me in person, I was kind of blown away because I thought I had a good pulse on a lot of invasive species in North America.
Mhm.
Totally slipped under my radar was lionfish. I had no idea.
Now, I am curious. Did
Uh-huh.
you watch the New Girl episode where they mentioned the lionfish?
The New Girl, like the show New Girl?
Mhm.
I have not, to be honest.
Okay, because I did want to check because so in California, if you they're not supposed to be in California
Oh,
either.
wow.
So there isn't really any over there because the water's too cold. But there's a New Girl episode where they are like, "Oh, the California lionfish," and I'm like, "That's not a thing." But very funny episode. But I'm like, no.
You'll find that this episode has a partner video where I interview Savannah about her profession and a little bit about her personal life. You'll find that she knows lionfish quite well, among some other species. And so if you want to check out that interview, be sure to follow the link that's in the description or somewhere along the video up here as well.
Mhm.
But if you could, let's talk about your region of the States over there by the Florida Panhandle and
Mhm.
talk about the local ecosystem. And then if you know as
Mhm.
much about how lionfish enter the ecosystem and where they're at.
Yes. So I'm from the Panhandle of Florida. I'm now moved down to the south part of Florida below Tampa, but all of the Gulf down to the Bahamas and upwards to North Carolina all has invasive lionfish. So it's invaded the Gulf and all the way up the Western Atlantic. So yes, it's one that down here we know of it more. The first sighting of it was in 1985, and we don't know if that's exactly when it happened, but that's the first like recorded sighting of it. They think that they started to pop up because of the aquarium trade. So much like your pythons and things, people were like, "I don't want this fish anymore," and then they would throw it in the ocean
Mhm.
because, yeah.
It's no wonder why someone would want a pet lionfish, but you'll see that when they end up in the wrong ecosystem, the results are dangerous.
Lionfish are particularly dangerous because they reproduce very quickly and they mature very quickly. But they're from Indo-Pacific, Red Sea. They like warm water, they like tropical water. They're very like they just hang out on the coral reefs. They're ambush predators, so they just kind of hang. We started to see more and more by the 2000s. More and more were being reported. In 2004 was when NEMA, or not NEMA, but NOAA finally categorized them as invasive. So then they started to, in 2009, they started their first lionfish derby. So Reef, which is an organization, especially down here, is big into the Keys and Bahamas and things. They started their first lionfish derby in the Bahamas. And what's unfortunate about getting lionfish out of the region is you can only have scuba divers or people that are free diving catch them. So the reason is because they hang out on those rocky reefs. And they're ambush predators. They don't go after bait like that. So you have to spearfish for that.
What blows my mind is that spearfishing has turned into a conservation movement in the Caribbean. Locals in Jamaica, the Bahamas, and other islands are going into the ocean and hunting for lionfish so that they can better balance the ecosystem.
They eat 70 different species of juvenile local fish. So grouper, snapper, your big game fish, when they're juveniles and when they're eggs, they eat a lot of those. So that's part of the reason there's such a big problem down here is we're losing some of that biodiversity. Oh, but aren't they poisonous? They're not poisonous. They are venomous, and they're only venomous in the spines. So only in the top little spines.
The lionfish possesses 18 venomous spines, and imagine getting stung by those. It is highly venomous, and though it does cause discomfort, nausea, vomiting, and even localized necrosis, it doesn't hold a candle to the most venomous fish in the world, the stonefish, both of which are part of the Scorpionidae family.
For listeners who might be uninitiated to
Mhm.
visual like associations of
Mhm.
venomous, can you give some examples of it? And
Sure. So the best like description of poisonous versus venomous, if you take a bite of it and you are sick, that is poisonous. If it takes a bite of you and you are sick, it is venomous.
there you go.
So when you think of snakes, snakes are venomous. But if you think of eating, when everybody talks about eating like a pufferfish, they have a poison gland inside of them that technically it's both at that point. If you eat the poison gland, it is poisonous, but if you just get poked by it, then it's venomous. So it's one of those, some things can be both, but something most of the things are not both. It's either one or the other. When you're poisonous, it gets a little tricky, but venomous, yeah, it's all in one specific area.
Hey listener, if you're enjoying the video, why don't you give it a like and share it with someone that you think would enjoy it? Words on Wildlife has so much more coming, including interviews and more commentary from me. So, like and subscribe.
And so let's go back to the culinary side of it.
Yes, they're delicious. So, it's my favorite fish to
Really?
eat, and what's
Yeah,
very unfortunate is I don't get to eat it very often. So, back, in 2015, 2016, when it was first getting up in the Panhandle, when we were doing the derbies, they would, like, so you catch the lionfish, they'd do their big derby, they'd get all of the people their prizes and stuff. My husband was a filleter, so he would go out and fillet the fish, and they would give away pounds and pounds of it. They would just they're like, "Oh, you want a bag of lionfish? Here's 30 pounds of it for free."
for free.
Um,
Oh,
for free. And they would cook it, so they would make lionfish tacos and lionfish dips, and there's a lot of different, like, really good recipes that they would show because they were like, "We want you to eat this. Like, we want this to be something like, get it out. We want people to want to get it out and eat it." And then, so I've had my fair share of lionfish in the mid 2010s, and then it, unfortunately became a fishery where people would started to go out, especially for those derbies, and they would leave the little ones. So they would be like, "Ah, that's not big enough for me to get my prize." So they'd leave the babies. And the problem with leaving babies is those babies mature within a year. So when they mature within a year, they can now have their own babies, and they typically lay about 2 million eggs in their lifetime. So they lay between 12 and 15,000 eggs at a time, and they can lay those eggs every 2 to 4 days.
what does a healthy version of the ecosystem look like?
So if you think about, yeah, your coral reefs, your rocky reefs, in Florida, they are it's big predator fish like your grouper and snapper are going to be kind of towards the top tier. Your sharks and big apex predators are up there, but these fish are going to eat your smaller fish and kind of be on top, like a predator up there with your sharks and things, especially your big groupers. It's mostly the coral, anything where structure. So artificial reefs, they love artificial reefs. From what FWC has done some research with that, they love those like man-made reefs where there's like boats or different like concrete structures that people have made. They love hanging out on those. But unfortunately for us in Florida, on this side of Florida especially, we don't have like a lot of natural reefs. So we have a lot of artificial reefs, that are important for especially our tourism. So up on the Panhandle, they have a lot of artificial reefs in Navarre Beach, and they're putting some out in Okaloosa on Okaloosa Island. And so if lionfish start invading up there, we're going to get less and less cool fish for tourism there too.
So it sounds like the biggest problem with lionfish is that they're harming a lot of the reproduction and stability of the local
Hmm.
native animals. And
Yes.
in turn, this is hurting tourism. Is that right?
Tourism, yeah, tourism and yeah, your food supplies. Yeah, it's ruining the whole ecosystem structure. So it's starting to be, unfortunately, where there are some populations that are becoming like stuck or like fixed populations in a certain parts of Florida, and so those it's hard to eradicate. So right now they're looking at control, and so yeah, there's only so much you can do to eradicate something that lays 2 million eggs every year, and that's every female. So if you multiply that times the thousands of them. I think, if I remember correctly, the number from 2009 to like recently for Reef's lionfish derbies, they've only captured like 39,000.
It's just
So
even put a dent in it.
it's, yeah, you can't really put a dent in it. The biggest thing that they're doing some research on now is how can our local like apex predators, like your sharks and your big fish, start to realize that that is a food item. Because right now, the problem with invasive species is it's not part of, like, nothing recognizes it. So hopefully some sharks or big fish will start to be like, ah, yes, I can eat you, and start to kind of take care of that on its own and bring it back down.
It seems like it's going to be at a point where that's the only option they might even have to eat. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
I often say I'm finding that the more that I'm in this field, that when it comes to invasive species, that
Hmm.
humans are the fault for them being invasive.
Typically.
That this is
Hmm.
nature's way of shaking things up in a sense. So I'm curious
Yeah.
long term what this will look like for the.
Hmm.
What is something that you want people to know about this animal, invasive or not?
You can eat it. That's one that I usually have to answer for people because they are always so surprised.
Right.
Um, and that it's a problem that we can't see unless you're going out on the reef. So there's a whole ecosystem collapse that happens when you have just one invasive species. And with lionfish being like the first one in the ocean, really in this area of the ocean that was recorded, it's gonna break it eventually, especially if nothing could be done about it.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Words on Wildlife. I have so much in store for you, so be sure to join me every Wildlife Wednesday for a new animal and a new topic. And don't forget, no matter how big or small, no matter how invasive or native, every species is worth protecting on this planet. See you next time.